discuss our 7th lesson in biology, that is coordination in life process. So you all of you know that human body is a wonderful machine. So how the machine continuously performs to produce different things. In the similar way, even our body also, in your human body, different life process continuously takes place. But how this all process takes place without any fault? There is a relationship between the working of different organ systems in your body. So for example, what the food you are taking, that is digested by the digestive system, but the digestive system, for the functioning of digestive system, it needs the nervous regulation, it needs the signals from your nervous system. At the same time, it also link up with the circulatory system. So in this way, different organ systems in your body are correlated with one another. So already in your 5th lesson, control and coordination, studied that how the brain and different nerves, peripheral nervous system, how the brain, spinal cord, control and coordinated the different activities in your body. In this lesson especially, we are going to learn how the coordination occurs between different organ systems by taking the digestive system as an example. So you know that digestive system mainly help to digest the food materials what you are taking. So daily you are taking food at the regular time mostly. So at the particular time of your meal, yes, you are feeling that some hunger pangs in your stomach. Means, for example, you feel that especially during lunch, especially students at your lunch period, you feel that if the lunch period it little bit delays, what happens? You just feel to motivate to consume food. So actually, how that happens means, first of all, the hunger pangs, production of hunger pangs, it starts with the one chemical substance in your blood that is known as glucose. So whenever there is the glucose level in your blood decreases, immediately the signal sent to your brain. So then the brain pass the information in the form of nervous regulation to your stomach walls. Then immediately the stomach walls secrete a hormone known as ghrelin. So here the ghrelin is the hormone responsible to create the hunger pangs in your stomach. Ghrelin is the hormone responsible to produce hunger pangs in your stomach. Next, so whenever your stomach empty, the stomach walls produces ghrelin hormone. That ghrelin hormone create hunger pangs or signals. Then, okay, anyway after generation of hunger pangs, you take in the food, and whenever your stomach, whenever you feel that your stomach gets full, immediately one more hormone known as leptin. Leptin is secreted by your stomach walls. That leptin helps to motivate to do not consume the food actually. So when there is empty stomach, ghrelin is produced. When there is full of stomach, then there is a leptin hormone produced. So here these hunger pangs and production of these hormones is under the control of nervous system, and especially the parts which control the carrying signals of hunger pangs is diencephalon in your forebrain and the vagus nerve. So the nerve which is responsible for controlling nervous regulation means that is vagus nerve. This is the 10th cranial nerve. So you know that you are having 12 pairs of cranial nerves. In that out of 12 pairs, the 10th cranial nerve we call as vagus nerve. Vagus nerve is responsible for controlling the hunger pangs. And diencephalon, here you know that the brain contains 3 parts: forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain. In that forebrain actually cerebrum and diencephalon, 2 parts are there. And the diencephalon of forebrain help to control the hunger pangs or hunger signals. And these hunger signals or hunger pangs continue up to 30 to 45 minutes. Continues up to 30 to 45 minutes. So, you know that whenever, is there any relation between actually your taste and smell? Means obviously yes only. So, how you identify the taste actually? Do you know that? Okay, the taste of your food identified actually by using your tongue. So your tongue having taste receptors, and based on the help of taste receptors, we are able to identify different types of taste, isn't it? But your nose, actually how are you able to detect the smell? Do you know that? So the nose, inner lining of nose or the mucous lining of nose contain some smell detecting sensory receptors or some sensory cells in the mucous lining of the nose. Those we call as nasal, the receptors we call as olfactory receptors. What we call them? Olfactory receptors. These olfactory receptors help to identify the smell of different airborne chemical substance molecules. So what are these different smell giving substances are flowing in the air? So the chemical substances which are present in the air will be entered into the nasal cavity, and in the nasal cavity the olfactory receptors present in the mucous lining, and these airborne chemical molecules will be dissolved in the mucous substance, and after that the olfactory receptor detect the smell and they pass the signals in the form of nerve signals to your brain. Then with the help of our brain we are able to analyze the smell of different chemical molecules, isn't it? So even in the similar way, how the nose is able to detect smells, even the taste buds which are present on your tongue. So on the tongue you see that different types of taste buds are there. These taste buds are present in papillae. So in 9th class you already studied about what are papillae. So here the taste buds are present in the form of clusters in the structure known as papillae, and these taste buds are open on the tongue with the help of taste pore, and inside the taste buds again some receptor cells are present. So when you are taking the food, the chemical substances present in your food will be dissolved in the saliva in the mouth, and so after that immediately through the taste pore, these chemical substances which are dissolved in the saliva will be touched to the nerve cells in the taste buds. Immediately that information will be reaches to brain and be able to identify various types of tastes actually. So here you know that for example the tongue containing, so how we are able to detect the taste and how different parts are associated with. For example, tongue, on your tongue having taste buds, with the help of taste buds to identify the taste. And here when the taste buds are able to identify the taste means the chemical substances present in the food, whenever they are dissolved by the saliva produced by the salivary glands. So whenever the food molecules dissolved in the saliva and the taste buds recognize the taste, and even be able to identify the different flavors of food with the help of olfactory receptors on the nose. So these all information together will be reached to the brain, then only be able to identify the taste. So there is a strong relation between the taste and smell senses. So for example, when you are not feeling well, especially during the period of cold, when you are suffered with cold, even though the food is really tasty, you are not shown interest towards to consume the food. Why? Because means, so there is a strong association between the taste sense and smell sense. So these olfactory receptors present in the nose help to detect the various flavors of the food. So if the food is really having good flavor means good aroma, obviously what we feel means we have to we just desire to eat or to consume the food. But for example, even sometimes the food is maybe really taste, but it does not produce good smell. At that time we are not shown that much interest to take that food. So for example, especially stale food means rotten food, or some dishes, especially those producing some bad odor, we are not able to take that food. And especially we feel that even at your illness time means during cold or during fever, you don't want to eat the food. So there is a relation between the taste and sense, and good flavor food always feel to make good taste. So for example, once the food in the digestion, first the food enters into the mouth, and in the mouth. So the food is thoroughly mixed and the food is pushed into the oral cavity with the help of the movements of circular muscles in your mouth. So the circular muscles inside your mouth, those are continuously help to move the food thoroughly in the oral cavity, and at the same time while you are masticating or while you are chewing, your lower jaw is continuously moving. Once you observe while you are eating, your upper jaw actually it is a fixed joint, that's why it does not move, but your lower jaw it is continuously moving while chewing or mastication. So during the production of the movements of the jaw, the fifth cranial nerve actually that is known as trigeminal nerve. That what is, so here two nerves are very important in the cranial nerves. The first one we call as 10th cranial nerve, vagus nerve, and the fifth cranial nerve we call as trigeminal nerve. So the fifth cranial nerve help to control the jaw movements. Fifth cranial nerve. So you have to remember in this lesson especially about two nerves. So here the 10th cranial nerve help to control the hunger pangs, that is vagus nerve, and the fifth cranial nerve help to control the movements of jaw muscles while we are chewing. Next, so once the food enters into your mouth, here the special structures known as teeth plays an important role in mastication the food. Means teeth are mainly helpful for the mechanical crushing of food. So actually, for better understanding how the actual mechanical crushing takes place, can be performed small activities. So for example, you have to take two pieces of chalk, and one is finely crushed into a powder, and one, for example, you take a piece of chalk and make it into two halves, and one half you remain at the same, and remaining half you just make a crushed into fine powder. And after that you take two beakers or two empty glass bottles, and in one of the beaker you put the half chalk as usually, and into remaining half you pour the crushed chalk, and after that you pour some amount of vinegar into both of the beakers, and after few times, what is your observation? In which beaker the chalk get dissolved easily, means obviously then compared to the whole chalk, the crushed chalk powder dissolved easily or mixes easily in the vinegar. So here what plays actually an important role, means obviously the mechanical crushing of food with the help. So here how the crushed chalk digested easily, how the crushed chalk dissolved easily in the vinegar, in the same way the properly grinded food will be swallowed and will be digested easily. So this experiment tells us the importance of the mechanical crushing of food. So which structures actually plays a major role in the mechanical crushing of food, means here teeth plays an actually major role in the mechanical crushing of food. So actually in your mouth you have four different types of teeth. How many types of teeth? Four different types of teeth. So first one we call as incisors, second one we call as canines, third one we call as premolars, and fourth one we call as molars. So simply for your remember, we have to read that ICPM. What is the short formula? ICPM means incisors, canines, premolars and molars. So for example, when you are showing your teeth, so what are the middle teeth? We call them as incisors. So these incisors we also call them as either biting teeth or cutting teeth. Incisors are known as cutting teeth. What is that? Name of incisors is cutting teeth. And so for example, if you want to bite or cut anything, you just put the food item here. So incisors are responsible for cutting and biting the food. Next one, canines. So while you are eating a chicken joint or something, so how you will eat? Here, in this way or in this way? Obviously in this way. So besides the incisors, there are the sharp pointed edged teeth. We call them as canines. These canines are responsible for tearing, especially while you are eating flesh items. These tearing plays a major role. So canines are tearing teeth. So incisors are called as cutting teeth and canines are called as tearing teeth. And the next one, after the sharp edges, the next teeth we call as premolars and molars. Both are having wide and blunt ended, which teeth actually situated at your back of the jaw. We call them as premolars and molars. And these premolars and molars especially responsible for grinding of the food. What is that? Grinding of food. So here incisors we call them as cutting teeth, canines we call as tearing, and premolars and molars are responsible for the grinding of the food. So here, because of these 4 types of teeth, the mechanical crushing of food is done in a perfect way. So here, for better remember, actually one dental formula is there. So here the dental formula is different for different animals. For example, if you take humans, the dental formula, how can we remember that? 2123 by 2123. So here, actually, this number means this 2123. How means here? This is order of ICPM. Means I means incisors, canines, premolars, and molars. And here this number denotes 2123 denotes the number of teeth present. The number of teeth present at the half of your one jaw, means you are having 2 jaws, upper jaw and lower jaw. This 2123 denotes the half number of teeth present at your half of upper jaw. At the same time, this is also number of teeth present at half of your each jaw. So this together totally here get number 16, means these 2 numbers added we get the number of teeth present in each jaw, means here 2123 totally 16. So here the 16 is number of teeth present at one jaw. So here 16 plus 16 together it is 32. So here humans having total number of 32 teeth. So in most of the time we ask the bit. For example, how many in the dental formula, how many incisors are there? Means here the 2 denotes the number of incisors. So here incisors are 2. But mostly asked that what are the total number of incisors. So if you remember this 2123, if he asked that what is the total number of incisors, means you have to multiply each of the number into 4. Then you get that responsible number of teeth. For example, what is the number of incisors in your mouth? Means you have to divide 2 into 4. So 4 into 2, 8. Total you have 8 number of incisors. How many incisors? 8. And he asked how many number of canines, means 1 into 4. So you have total 4 number of canines. Then after that again premolars 2. 2 into 4 means again 8. 8 premolars are there. Next one molars. Premolars means 3 into 4, 12. So 12 plus 3, 20. 20 plus 4, 24 plus 8, 32. So you get 32 number of total teeth. So you have to remember this. You just simply remember this 2123. You will get the whole number of teeth in your mouth. Next. So after the mastication, after the mechanical crushing of the food, the tongue, actually the food we are taking is mixed thoroughly in the saliva, and the circular muscles of the mouth help to pushes the food in the oral cavity, and the food is easily mixed inside the oral cavity with the help of the saliva and the tongue. After that, you just swallow the food, and the saliva help to make the food into a ball like a partially digested ball like substance that we call as bolus actually. And that bolus simply we are swallowed, means the bolus will be sent to next part known as esophagus, and here with the help of tongue also it will swallow the food, and the swallowing is the action of swallowing is, and here every function of digestion again it is linked up with the one of the part of nervous system or one of the nervous regulation. So here the swallowing is associated with the brainstem, and in the brainstem especially it is under the control of middle oblongata, which is the part of your hindbrain. So the swallowing is under the control of middle oblongata, and the jaw muscle movement are controlled by fifth cranial nerve, and the hunger pangs are controlled by diencephalon forebrain and vagus nerve. Next one. So here the saliva almost in your first lesson we learned that the saliva is secreted by 3 pairs of salivary glands, and that saliva contain enzyme known as salivary amylase or pyrine, which which help to digest the carbohydrates partially into sugars or maltose. And per day means a normal human being per day he will secrete 1 to 1.5 liters of saliva every day. So a normal human being, how much saliva produced per day means nearly 1 to 1.5 liter per day. And after swallowing, the food is sent into next part known as long tube known as esophagus. It is known as esophagus. Actually, esophagus, it is a long tube extended from pharynx to the stomach. It is a tube extended from pharynx to the stomach. And here the esophagus is the only part where there is no digestion takes place. The part where there is no digestion takes place. But actually what is esophagus actually means? Esophagus is a, not only it is a simple rubber tube, it is just muscular and elastic tube. Elastic means it is able to stretch. So esophagus is a narrow, muscular means it is made up of different muscles and it is elastic in nature. And here the esophagus, upper end of the esophagus connected to the pharynx and the lower end of the esophagus connected to the stomach. Upper end connects to the pharynx and lower end connects to the stomach. And the inner lining of the esophagus secretes slimy substance, means some gum-like substance. That gum-like substance we call as mucus, which plays very important role for the passage of food. The mucus secreted by the inner lining of esophagus wall, it helps to easy slide down of the food bolus into the stomach. Means because of the mucus, the food easily slides down into next part known as stomach. And in the esophagus, here the inner lining, the inner wall of the esophagus, the wall of esophagus is made up of two types of muscles. So the inner layer of esophageal wall is made up of circular muscles and the outer layer of esophagus is made up of longitudinal muscles. So the esophageal wall is made up of two types of muscles. The inner layer is made up of circular muscles. The outer layer is made up of longitudinal muscles. So once after the swallowing action, the food bolus will be sent to the esophagus. But here, to better understanding the function of esophagus, one more activity also given. For example, you have to take two small rubber tubes or water tubes. So, and to take two pieces of these rubber tubes through which we are pump the water, and to these rubber tubes are old cycle tubes, anything. So these rubber tubes, into two rubber tubes, we apply the oil inside of the rubber tube. At the same time, we have to take two potatoes and over the potatoes apply the oil, and after that try to insert the potatoes into the rubber tube by squeezing. So simply by squeezing the rubber tube at one place, the potato will be easily slide to next place. So in the similar way, how the potato squeezes, how the potato will be passes through that cycle tube, in the same way food bolus will be passes into our esophagus. So here very simple mechanism takes place. So always, for example, the circular muscles of the esophagus just contract. Contract means they become narrow. The contract behind the food bolus means here actually food bolus is here. The part of the esophagus, the circular muscles of the esophagus contract. Because of that, the food bolus will be pushed to the neck lower part. And at the same time, the longitudinal muscles of the esophagus wall contract. Because of that, the longitudinal muscles of the esophagus contracted in front of the bolus. Means listen carefully. The circular muscles of the bolus contract behind the food bolus, means at the back of the food bolus. Because of the squeezing action, the food will be pushed to the lower part. At the same time, the longitudinal muscles of the esophagus contract in front, means down of the food. So because of that, that particular part become wider. Means here, because of the contraction and again relaxation, contraction, relaxation, it just create one wave-like movement. That wave-like movement we call as peristaltic movement, and that movements we call as peristalsis. Means here it include contraction and relaxation. So because of that, based on the food bolus, the part become narrowing and again it become widen, narrowing, widen. In this way the food will be easily slide down. So this we call as peristalsis. So peristalsis occurs in the esophagus. And next one, after the esophagus, what is the next part? Means stomach. So stomach is simply, it is not a bag with specific volume. Actually it is a pouch like structure which adjusts its size according to the quantity of food what it have. So here the stomach, actually the stomach where the esophagus will be opens into the stomach, that we call as cardiac stomach, means the lower part of the esophagus and the first end of the stomach we call as cardiac stomach. And the stomach where it opens into the duodenum of the small intestine, that we call as pyloric stomach. The stomach having two parts. So the stomach part towards the esophagus, that we call as cardiac stomach, and the stomach part towards the duodenum of the small intestine, that we call as pyloric stomach. Means this one cardiac stomach and this one pyloric stomach. So here actually the place where the stomach opens into small intestine, that we call as pyloric stomach. Actually at that place one small aperture and one small ring-like muscle-like structure is there, that we call as pyloric sphincter. What we call pyloric sphincter. It is situated at the place where stomach opens into the small intestine. Here pyloric sphincter is situated between the stomach and the small intestine, and in the stomach actually three steps takes place. First one we call as propulsion, the next one grinding, and later repropulsion. So in the propulsion, actually whenever the food is sent into the stomach, immediately the brain sends signals to the stomach walls. So stomach immediately secrete gastric juice, at the same time HCl also. The hydrochloric acid which is secreted, so the stomach wall secrete gastric juice along with the hydrochloric acid, and this gastric juice contain pepsin and enzyme which help to digest the proteins partially. And this hydrochloric acid very important. Why? Because this hydrochloric acid having three functions. One is it just disinfects the food, at the same time it makes the medium of the stomach into acidic medium. So because of the acidic medium, the proteins are digested in a better way. So for activation of pepsin, for digestion of proteins, there is a need of acidic medium. That acidic medium was created by the hydrochloric acid. And here the hydrochloric acid which is secreted by our stomach is so strong acid. Actually you already know that in chemistry strong acids and weak acids. So hydrochloric acid is one of the best example for the strong acid. It able to digest even on bones also. Then it having that much capability to digest the bones, then how our stomach able to protect itself from the action of that strong acid? Clear? So the HCl able to digest hard bones also. At the same time, the now our smooth inner lining of stomach is protected by this strong acid. Means here actually for better understanding one more activity given. You just take two leaves of any plant, and one of the leaf you just apply the Vaseline petroleum jelly or Vaseline over its surface, and you just another leaf you just remaining as usually. So on the two leaves we have to pour few drops of weak acid. Here in this activity we don't use any strong acid. Why? Because it immediately burns. So we have to take two leaves, and for one of the leaves we have applied Vaseline over that, and remaining leaf we do not apply anything, and on both of the leaves we have to pour few drops of weak acid. And after few hours we will observe that which leaf spoils first or which leaf destroys first. Means obviously you know the answer. The leaf which do not apply or do not covered with the Vaseline or petroleum jelly gets spoiled fast. But here the leaf which is applied by the Vaseline is do not spoil. Why? Because here the Vaseline acts as the protective layer to protect from the acid action to that leaf. So in this activity, what the action performed by the Vaseline, the same action even performed by our mucus, a slimy substance secreted by our inner lining of stomach walls. So because of the mucus or jelly-like substance which is present in the inner lining of stomach, it protects your stomach wall against the action of strong acid. Very, very important. If just imagine that if the mucus is not present, if the mucus is not present, so what happened to your stomach wall? So that's why even our doctors or elders suggested or insisted to take the food at regular intervals of time. Why? Because at every time we are taking meal at proper time. So because of that, our nervous system is activated, and through that particular time acid will be released by our stomach to digest the food. But we are not taking food at that time. The released acid will show action upon the stomach walls. So at that time the stomach walls start dissolving and it lead to the formation of peptic ulcers. Very actually it is severe problem. These peptic ulcers sometimes may exceed and it lead to it's too much irritation and burning sensation. Those all. So you have to just consume the food at regular intervals. Means every day just try to take the food at proper time. So here in the propulsion the food bolus in the stomach is will be moved from one part of the stomach to the another part, and in the grinding because of the HCl and gastric juice, the food will be vigorously mixed in the stomach. And next, retropulsor means the partially digested food are nothing but chyme, the slurry-like substance known as chyme, in which proteins are partially digested. That chyme will be entered, only some part of the chyme will be entered into the duodenum, and most of it will be sent back into the stomach. So that we call as retropulsor. Here pyloric sphincter help to control the allowing only little quantity of food from stomach to the duodenum of the small intestine. And next one small intestine. So you know that small intestine is the part where digestion and absorption takes place within the small intestine only. And the small intestine wall is made up of a number of tiny finger-like projections we call as villi. What we call villi. And whenever the acidic natured food from the stomach will be entered into the small intestine, immediately the brain sends signals to release two hormones from the small intestine known as secretin and cholecystokinin. So you have to remember that these two are not enzymes. Actually, the acidic nature of chyme from the stomach enter into the intestine. It lead to releasing of two hormones known as secretin and cholecystokinin. This secretin and cholecystokinin hormone motivate the liver to produce bile juice, and it just stimulate the pancreas to produce pancreatic juice, and to stimulate small intestine to produce succus entericus. So because of secretion of these all juices from their respective organs, the whole digestion of the food components completed in the small intestine. So here these two are very important, secretin, cholecystokinin. These two are different hormones which are released by our intestinal wall whenever the food from stomach entered into the intestine. And the intestinal wall is made up of tiny finger-like projections we call as villi. So here actually what is the need to having many folds in the small intestine means here it very easy. Just for this also given one experimental activity for our better understanding. You just take one paper tube which 10 into 10 size one paper tube means just take one 10 into 10 size paper and you just join the both ends of the paper to make a tube. The same time you have to take one more paper which is 20 into 20 centimeters in size, and you just connect the two ends, join the two ends and make one more tube. And you just try to insert second tube means 20 into 20 size tube into the 10 into 10 size tube. Is it possible to insert that bigger tube into the smaller tube? Means no, it is impossible. Then at the same time you just try it in a different manner. Means you have to take one more paper, you just fold the paper into many folds. How many as possible, how many folds you try to make, you just fold that paper and you just connect the both ends and prepare one tube. And here then you insert this folded tube into the first tube, means easily it is inserted. So here how the paper tube having many folds will be fit easily into the small size tube. In the same way, our small intestine wall also having some paper folds like structure known as intestine. Because of that folds of the small intestine, the food remain longer time in that folds. So it allows maximum absorption, maximum amount of absorption into the blood of the digested food molecules. For example, you just take the plain surface and you pour water, it is easily slide down. But if you just pour the water in the folded thing or any rough surface which is uneven, it just remains at every step and it will flow slowly. In the same way, if the food, digested food remains at that folds longer time, it allows maximum amount of absorption. So that is the reason behind how the intestinal walls folded into the number of folds known as villi. So here this is the actually simple structure of the villi of small intestine. Here the villi I already told to you, every part of digestive system, the inner wall contains mucous gland, which mucous gland contains a mucous membrane. And here the villi of the small intestine connected to blood capillaries as well as lacteal. Here lacteal means it is the tube or to which lymph is flowing, and these are the blood capillaries through which actually blood passes. And the digested food from villi, it will be absorbed to the blood capillaries as well as lymph tube known as lacteal. And here the outer lining we call as epithelium. And next one, so here the digestive system compared to remaining all of our body system, it is unique in nature, means it is somewhat special actually. So do you know that why it is so much special? Means obviously yes, why? Because the small intestine or the digestive system, the gut, which is a long tube extending from esophagus to the anus, nearly 9 meters lengthy digestive canal of the gut. It is continuously exposed to different physical stimuli in the form of the food what we are taking. Why? Because through the eyes, by using different sense organs, we are able to identify a particular sensor. But coming to digestive system in the form of different chemical food molecules will be continuously contact with our digestive system. So to coordinate with that much physical stimuli, our digestive system, irrespective of our central and peripheral nervous system, the whole digestive system wall having number of bundle of neurons, nearly 100 million neurons are situated throughout your gut. So scientists even simply they call them as second brain. So here second brain means it does not take any participation in thinking or logical reasoning something. It help to coordinate the different activities of digestive system with their associated system like circulatory system, nervous system. So it continuously exposed to food molecules and in the form of physical stimuli. That way the digestive system itself having its own regulation by having number of neurons situated in its walls. So that's why the scientists called as second brain, and technically we call the nervous system present in the digestive system called as enteric nervous system. So if any term related to digestive canal, digestive tract, we call them as enteric. So for example, if you suffered with either acidity, ulcers or gastric, so then someone suggests to you go to the enterologist. So here enteric nervous system is associated with the digestive system, the nervous system associated with the digestive canal. And once the food completely absorbed in the villi of the small intestine, the next some solid food substance will be sent to the next part of your digestive system known as large intestine. So in the large intestine, here for example, if you take either any wet substance, means some soup like substance, or any dough which is mixed with the, you just take some flour and mix with the water in the loose way, and after that you just tie over with the filter paper. So what happens, the filter paper absorbs the extra water. At the same time, for example, on any oily substance, you just apply with the, and you just press with the filter paper. The filter paper absorbs the oil from the food substance. In the similar way, the undigested food which will be sent to large intestine, in that the excess water present in that food, undigested food, will be absorbed back into the large intestine. So how the filter paper over the food, how it retain back its water. In the similar way, the wall of large intestine, it just absorbs the excess water present in the food. So after that, the solid fecal matter will be sent to next part. Actually, rectum. Rectum is also one of the part of small intestine. The left side of the colon or large intestine, it acts as some storage tank to store the fecal. So the solid fecal matter we called as stool. The stool, after the partial storage in the rectum, it will be excreted through the anus, and at the opening of anal aperture, one more sphincter is present that we called as anal sphincter. Actually, here there is pair of anal sphincters. In that, one is involuntary in action and one is voluntary in action. So through the help of anal sphincter, the undigested stool or the fecal matter will be sent out. So here the digestive system, not for example for digestion of any food substance, it just coordinated with the remaining other systems, means the various substances in the blood regulate the intaking of food. So here it is associated with the circulatory system. At the same time, for example, to control the various muscular movements, it needs nervous regulation, means it is linked up with the nervous system. So even at the same time, chemical regulation also occurs in the form of hormones. So here the digestive system itself control and coordinates its own functioning by coordinating the various body systems in your body. So thank you, students.